Hello everybody and welcome back. This is a continuation of my e-buggy build series. In this video I'm going to talk specifically about shimming the diffs. The pinion specifically is very different than it's done in the kit. I use different shims that I think is more reliable, something I've been doing for several years now and works great, so I want to share that with you. I originally did this video a long time ago. It might have been my first video, and it was with a D817, which used the same similar drivetrain as the e-buggy. So the e-buggy still uses the same drivetrain, so I'm going to show you how to set that up, and we'll work on doing that and getting the diff shimmed and in the housing. We're going to dive into bag F, but it's only going to be part of it. So I'm going to get this camera turned around to a POV view, and we'll be right back. Okay, so here we go. Tonight we got to get the new boxing knife out. I've got enough knives to have a different unboxing knife every video. So this is a Case XX Coke bottle red bone, which is a very sought after knife, kind of rare. This is Case XX, so it's 1965, 1969. Really cool knife. Good one to carry, good small size. So we're going to break out bag F, and we're looking for the diff housings. Not very sharp. And some of these knives they're showpieces, so we generally don't even use them. So a lot of parts in bag F. We're going to dive into those other parts later. Let's see what we need. Really, there's my soft arms that I don't need. Okay, this is what we're looking for. Dive into these housing. I'm only going to do one housing to show you. I've got front and rear to do, but I'm only going to show you one, so it's pretty much the same process front to rear. We got pretty much the whole front end in this bag. Okay, so I'm going to get me a towel. So, see, I got my little cheat sheet with my notes. I bought these shims a long time ago from Fastenal. The only place I could find them. I searched everywhere on the internet and found them at Fastenal. So, here's the deal. I definitely don't need that. Here's the deal. Normally, you use these little shims. One on the inside, one on the outside, I think is what it calls for. But the problem is, what I've discovered is these helical cut gears kind of push the gear into the bearing, and these shims get a conical shape to them, and it doesn't last. So the best way to do this, I found, is 15 by 21 by 0.1 shim. These are what I got from Fastenal. Part number is 11511062. It's 15 millimeters by 50 millimeter ID by 21 millimeter OD by 0.1 thickness. And I reference back on my, and these got a lot of lube on them from sitting so long, so I'm gonna wipe them off. The original video I did, and the parts changed, gears changed a little bit, so the thickness may be different, but I originally started with 4 shims. So I'm going to put 4 shims in there and see where it sits. So let's measure this. Zero out of gauge. 4 shims, 0.47 millimeters. So these shims, what you do is put them down in the housing, and they go under the bearing. So you do that, snap the bearing in, then snap your bearing on the outside. Your gear goes on from the inside with no shim. Okay, so next, for the outer shim, these shims are, you buy them in a pack of 4 and they're a little more expensive. So what I found, just skimming around, Serpent makes a shim, part number 903235, that comes in a larger pack. I think it's 10 for a couple of bucks. And they're actually a little bit thicker. That's what I like about them. A little bit thicker, going to be a little more durable. So original video I did 1 shim on the outside, so I'm gonna do 1. If I remember right, I did this last time on my last e-buggy. I had to put a few more shims on the inside, so we're gonna try this and see what happens. It looks pretty close. So then you get your clip here and take there's going to be a gap for the clip. I like the gap to be here, you know, not where this hole for the axle goes, drive shaft goes. So these things are kind of a bear to get in, so just bear with me. Okay, so let's see. Well, I think I like for it to be just barely any play, just a tiny bit of play. Looks like there's no play. So, looks like what I'm going to do is pop this back off, take a shim out of the inside. Be careful not to sling it across the room. That'll be hard to find. Okay, whoop, there goes that shim. Okay, so I'm trying to pop this center bearing out, and I'm going to take out 1 shim at a time until we get it right. So we're going to go with 3 shims, 15 by 21 by 0.1, which comes up with a thickness of 0.33. Okay, you see how they fit in there? Plenty of room for the pinion to go back in there. We've got to put the bearing back in. Make sure it's seated good. Then put your pinion back in. Your shim. And then your clip. Some people hate these clips. I don't mind them at all. I think they work great. Now, I've never had a problem with them at all. They are kind of a pain to get on though, I'll give them that. I'm still not free. Okay, we'll try it when we're done. And we're only making, remember, we're only making adjustments 0.1 millimeter. So it's not surprising that it's gonna take a couple of adjustments. Now, once you do this, you don't have to touch it for a very long time. I want to say my last e-buggy has still got the same shims from the original build. I don't think I ever ended up changing them. Because once you get this set, and these bearings last super long time too. They're big and durable. So now we're going to drop down to 2 shims. Okay, we got our pinion, our serpent shim. Okay, now that snapped down much better, so I think we're close. Yeah. Okay, so you see now, I don't know if you can tell this on the camera, but the gap in the clip is right here on the side, away from this gap, and there's just a tiny bit of play and it spins free. So you don't want it to feel like it's got any drag or anything. You don't want it to be loose. You just want it to be barely any movement back and forth. It should be good to go. Okay, just so I remember, I'm gonna make sure I don't put this gear in backwards. You see the gear goes in backwards of the nitro car. On the e-buggy it goes the gear to the right as you're putting it in there. On the nitro buggy it's the other way. So we're gonna work on this. So I'm gonna get this is the front, so we're gonna grab the front diff. I always like to feel it, and we're gonna shim it. I got my shims right over here. Gonna take 2 shims, and you want to shim it somewhat tight on the initial build. So if you put it on the gear side, ooh, I was about to do it backwards, wasn't I? Just used to putting it in that way on the nitro car. If you put it in on the gear side, it's gonna make it tighter. But here's the thing: to check it, you've got to assemble it. So this is what we have to do. We're gonna have to get our screwdriver. Go ahead and put these. We're going to have to put the B plate in. Got to put these screws in. Okay, so I'm gonna put this up before I spew those everywhere. Okay, in my car, my setup, I like to use, that's the C and D plate. Okay, I'm not sure where I put it, but for now we're going to use the stock B plate. I like using the 5-dot B plate, which is 2.8 millimeter. So, but for now, see, the stock one comes with a 2-dot. I have to do some digging to find that one. Actually, I'm not even doing the right one. It needs to be the A plate. The reason I'm doing this is because you have to put these long screws in there to tighten it up and get it to where it needs to be. Oh, we got to tighten our clutch up. Remember, we're going to come back and tighten these by hand. Okay, so make sure it's snug like it's going to be. Okay, and then this is how you're going to, ooh, I can tell it's tight already. Okay, so I like to do, it's going to be pushing away from it, pushing it out. So I like to pull on the gear, and you want to feel for some mesh back and forth, and there's actually none. It's super tight right now. We got to change that shim. Well, let's go max. Okay, so we got 2 shims on this side. That's tight as it can get. So I'm gonna, your initial setting is gonna be tighter. So if it's got a little bit of crunch, you're okay, but you don't want too much. You got to have some mesh in there. So I'm gonna switch it just 1 shim, move it over just a touch, and then we're going to repeat this process. Okay, so let's see what we got. We're pulling the gear. I feel just a tiny bit of mesh, and you rotate a little more. Tiny bit of mesh. Ooh, and a tight spot. You hear that click, 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 click? That's the mesh you're feeling. Feels good except that one spot. Let me try it again. Make a full rotation, because that may have been just a little, I may not have been holding it right or something. There is definitely a tight spot right there. Make sure there's nothing strange about the gear. So what I'm going to do, I think there's a spot on the gear that's going to probably clean itself off. So I'm going to loosen it up one more. And since it's the front, I'm going to leave it a little loose. What you'll want to do is come back not long after and make sure that hadn't loosened up too much so you don't eat up any gears. But the front doesn't take near the hit to the back, so the back you want to have it a little tighter. So what I'm going to do is move this shim, both shims, to the opposite of the gear side to move it away from the pinion. That pushes the gear away from it. There's no set way to do these shims. Everyone's just a tiny bit different. You have to get that feel for it. It's real simple. A lot of people don't quite get it, but I'll show you when I get done. Okay, so again, I'm going to pull on the gear, set it down so you have it pretty solid. Feel for that mesh. There's a tight spot. That's actually a little more than I would normally set it up. But there is one little spot in the gear that's probably going to need to be ran some. So what I'm going to do, right in there, I don't know if it's on the pinion or on the spur. Let's pull it out and give it a look real quick. I'm gonna take a quick break. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so I'm back with you. So what I discovered is there was a tiny little burr in this section right here on the spur gear. So I took my Dremel and just come up and nicked all the corners to take off and took the burr off, and now it's fine. So what I ended up with was 2 shims opposite of the gear. And while I've got it apart, before I'm gonna make the final assembly now, I use ProTech Premier White gear grease. Go ahead and put a little bit on the pinion, and then a little bit, yeah, about a third of the gear. That's really about all I use. Doesn't take much. That's probably more than I need, but it'll be all right. So go ahead and give it a few rotations. Now clean a little bit up with my finger. So I want to get it in there where it just keeps it good, nice and lubricated. All right, so I'll go ahead and do my final assembly. You don't need to really crank down these, just make sure it's good and tight. Don't overdo it. You strip that plastic out. Okay, so now I'll check my gear mesh one more time. Just feel that little bit of play in there. And this is a little bit on the loose side. I'll come back and check it after my first initial couple of packs. I'll run a couple of packs through it and check it. It should be good to go. And then repeat the same process for the rear. I may even set the rear up just a tiny bit tighter. And like I say, I'll run a couple of packs through it, get it broken in. Now that little burr that's in there is probably okay. If you don't set it up too tight to begin with, it will pretty much clearance itself out. It's probably just a little bitty flaw in the casting of it. It's no big deal. Not uncommon to see that from time to time. I've never seen that exactly like that, but it is what it is, and it should clear itself up, because it's gonna have a little wear on the gears anyway as it breaks in. So what I'll do, I'll run a couple of packs and come and check that. Now if that gap's opened up and cleared up a little too much, I may swap that shim and put one shim over here and one on each side. So, but that's how I shim my diffs. Works out great for me. I like this method much better. It seems to be much more reliable. Like I say, when I had it before with the regular tiny shims, I would go through those pretty regular. And then when you order these, you get a couple of them and you get that clip in a pack, and it's more expensive. So you get those serpent shims cheaper for a bigger pack, and they're a little more robust. So that's why I use that. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. Next up, I think we'll finish assembling the front. We'll go through the rest of the F bag. We got sway bars. We got the front C hubs, which comes with 17.5. I'll be reusing my 20-degree caster blocks, which is a major difference in the setup, I believe. We got the 2-degree hubs, the CVAs, all this good stuff. So pretty much the next video will probably be assembling the rest of the front end and actually getting it on the chassis. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope this helps you out. Okay, everybody, that wraps up part 5 of the e-buggy build series. I broke this down into the shim section alone because that's a pretty important step, and it's kind of time consuming. So I wanted to go ahead and do that, get it knocked out of the way before we continue the rest of the front build. Now when we go back to the rear, I'll probably skip that step, and I already have it done. So you can just come back and reference that, because there'll be several other parts in the rear that'll go into that. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned in for the e-buggy series. We're going to go all the way through this thing and we'll get it on the track and show you setup from start to finish on one playlist. So thanks for watching.